So my advice to you all is for you to make a little bit of investigation. And I'm not talking about self-inquiry right now. It's probably a more important investigation. Forget about these new books, commentaries of all these beautiful, elaborated games of words, of poetry, of... Go back to the old scriptures. Try to understand how was the life of the seeker of truth. How was the spiritual path back then? Read the stories of the saints for you to get an understanding of what the path is. And look at your own life then. And let's see if you understand something. You see, the majority of you out there, you have enormous potential, but you have been deceiving yourselves. Because deep down in the seekers of truth, I'm just talking to seekers of truth, deep down you know that these things are not right. But you're using what you see as an excuse to participate, to get these other things, these mundane desires satisfied with an excuse. But understand that the regret that comes from this is enormous if you're a seeker of truth. If not, nothing to say. But if you go to the old days, you will understand a lot of things, a lot of things. Nothing better than a dead master so that you can interpret the teachings at your own will. This is being done all the time, and it may be logical sometimes. But remember, your logic is different from the logic of others. So what does this mean? It means that your logic is not absolute, it is relative. Relative to what you call your reality now. And this changes. So this is useless. Go back, get the stories, the Puranas, all these ancient tales, and you will see how the life of the seeker of truth was. And the stories are there because there were those who were doing the path, and there were others that were observing what they were doing. So those who were not in a place of such an intense quest could see these behaviors of these seekers of truth that they could not understand, and all this got registered. They could not understand at that point, but when their own calling would come, they would have a reference. And this is how it is continued. So your path is not just your own. Everybody in this world is teaching something, and everybody is learning something. Seekers of truth, they look at other seekers of truth to see more or less how is the path done, what to do. So these days, the majority of seekers of truth, seekers, let's call it this way, there's not much different from a mundane person. Only the circumstances, the language, the behavior, maybe the clothes, just this, but is the same goals, the same things. Nothing is that much of a difference. In a form, maybe, but not in the content. So doing this exercise of going to the past and see how it was it is very important. See, because all of these interpretations, they are very new. They are very new. And for a teaching to show that it is good, valuable, it has to endure time. And by now, few decades already passed. By now, some of you are starting to realize what a bunch of nothing that all these things are. And if you're in this position, I imagine that if a lot of years have passed and you have been investing apparently in this thing but taking care of little life, it will be hard for you to admit what has been happening. Even so, the sooner you realize, the better, because it is always time to sincerely start the path. It is always time. But make no mistakes. If you have been avoiding the narrow path, those fears, those difficulties that were connected, that made you devoid, these things will be there and will be there stronger. So it will be even more difficult. But still possible, in theory, of course. Okay.